I'm wondering now, since the NSA and the, technologically and financially astute people within the United States government realize, oh, we can't stop this. They're going to try, and this politician's going to try to pass this law and this law. And since, as you said earlier, U.S. is probably going to be the last one to the orange pill party because the U.S. dollar is what keeps America the empire that it is. But my question, since U.S. probably will be the last of the party, but since they also the U.S. government owns a lot of Bitcoin that they've seized, would it not be when America finally does make the decision, all right, fine, we'll give in to Bitcoin, couldn't it happen? Couldn't they just one day just wake up and go, oh yeah, we love Bitcoin now or whatever? America typically moves pretty slowly. We've seen that with the legalization of cannabis. It's still state by state, even though the federal government still is criminalizing it and stuff like that. But Bitcoin's different because the US government owns Bitcoin. It has it in its possession because it sees so much of it. So I guess we're just talking theory here, but don't you think then they could just suddenly, or somebody or one just go, yeah, let's do it? Or how do you think America would do it?
I think they recently, the feds, I think it's the U.S. Marshals handle the Bitcoin that has been seized. I think they recently applied to sell some of it, the last of the Silk Road stuff. So I think it's too slow moving, the vast bureaucracy of, it's not a structure because it's such a huge, system with all sorts of states' rights and all sorts of treasury and central bank and very powerful entities, each with their own huge amount of power. I think there's no singular character like a President Bukele who could come in there and say, hey, hold on, we need to hold on to this Bitcoin, right? I don't see that happening. And it would be too slow moving. Maybe there might be one senator who would say like Rand Paul might say, hey, we should hang on to this. We shouldn't sell it. Let's pass a law. It would take, a year or two, right? I don't see it happening.
Well, game theory would suggest that at some point they do flip and they become constructive on Bitcoin. At the moment, they are net sellers of Bitcoin, tragically, just like China banned Bitcoin mining, and they could have been the Bitcoin mining superpower, but they chose to not go that path. And we make the analogy going back to the Ming Dynasty, 500 years. The emperor of the Ming Dynasty at that time famously burnt their treasure ships.
Yeah.
China had the global fleet of treasure ships. They were ruling the world. They had the most powerful empire in the world. But apparently the emperor felt threatened by the mercantile class at the time and had these treasure ships burnt. And they went into a multi-hundred-year period of darkness. And so, again, this is similar. They got rid of Bitcoin mining at a really inopportune time. And it could be considered to be an equally epic, tragic mistake. Whereas the U.S. similarly, by selling off their Bitcoin as they have been doing, is making a tragic mistake that will never be fixed. But at some point, the game theory kicks in, and suddenly common sense prevails, and the idea of, we actually need to be adding Bitcoin. Then a couple of things could happen. Number one, if they're printing money to buy bonds, why don't they print money to buy Bitcoin? Right? The Fed is printing trillions. They can print and buy Bitcoin. They have so then other countries, the printing presses game theory kicks in on a super hyper charged basis.
It's just whether or not any Bitcoiners are dumb enough to then sell it for that fiat.
Right.
But it's certainly, I mean, okay, there's this notion that they could print money and then buy Bitcoin if anybody's stupid enough to sell their Bitcoin to them for something that could be, if even the government is in on the charade, on the farce, then that blatantly, then why would you want to sell your Bitcoin? But it doesn't make any sense at all for them to sell Bitcoin because they're only received dollars, which they could easily print. So it doesn't make any sense at all. Like it doesn't make any economic sense that they would sell it for dollars. Like, especially something that they understand. I think they understand the value of Bitcoin and why it's not going away and why it has value. And yet the vast bureaucracy, right? It's moving, it's in motion, and it's hard to stop.
Yeah.
And so
It's
they'll sell the Bitcoin.
Like a pawn shop, people go to the pawn shop and they sell their, their very expensive watches for pennies on the dollar because they're desperate.
Yeah.
So the U.S. is highly indebted and they're desperate for cash, and they may sell their Bitcoin because they're desperate for cash, because it's not a sound economic country anymore, and then, there's a couple of other paths to explore more on the conspiracy side of things. But I think that at some point game theory kicks in, because the incentive model of Bitcoin, the incentive model of the protocol is, it's a thing of beauty. It's the Sistine Chapel of game theory. It's a beautiful, balanced, exquisite example, artistically rendered, beautifully balanced incentive model that tricks humans into unfucking their money.
That's what it should say. You're unfucking your money. There should just be a big billboard over the Federal Reserve. Here's how to unfuck your money. And there's the Bitcoin symbol of the Federal Reserve.